Welcome to this screen capture looking at water transfer schemes. The concept of this is to look at why countries transfer water around themselves to figure out where you've got excess supply and excess demand in order to meet the needs of the general public. Going to look at a range of different things, and this first image gets you to think about the different construction projects going on in the world. These present at as of last year, I think it was, the 10 biggest construction projects that are going on. And what you can see is that there's an awful lot of money being spent on a range of different things. But there's a few important ones. I mean, clearly we've got the International Space Station, Sellafield Nuclear Project, we've got a business park over here, we've got Dubai Land, and we've got another entertainment feature, another entertainment feature, another entertainment feature here. But £27 billion was being spent in Libya on the Great Man-Made River Project to ensure that water was being transferred from the south of the country, which was stored in fossil underground locations, to the north of the country. In southern Egypt, $90 billion was being spent on irrigation and land reclamation to ensure that water was being transferred off the Nile to remove some issues around population densities in the north of the country. And then we move over to China. And as of this diagram, they were spending $58 billion on the south to north water diversion project. These are large-scale projects, all designed to actually improve water security for these different countries. And this is vast amounts of money to be spending to ensure that a country becomes water dependent. So we're going to look at why these countries are carrying out these water transfer projects. Now, the first thing to do is to come up with a concept of a water transfer scheme. And it's a pretty simple concept. And it's the movement of water from an area of surplus to an area of deficit. Now, I'm going to want you to look at three different examples, so you've got three different case studies. The first one, which I'm going to ask you to look at, is the Snowy Mountains scheme, which is occurring in Australia. This is the largest engineering project in Australia, and it's about moving water around. And they've done this through 16 dams, 7 power stations, and their network of tunnels, pipelines, and aqueducts. This is all very well and good, and they've moved vast amounts of water, but it does have consequences. It's destroyed valuable wildlife habitats. It's caused a change in the discharge of the rivers at certain locations, and it's increasing salinisation issues. And what we have to remember is that the Snowy Mountains are in the southeast of Australia. Now, this is an area which has experienced significant levels of drought due to El Nino processes. And so moving water around is not necessarily the best and most appropriate scheme to look at, the concept to do. But they've done it. The second concept is looking at water transfer between Turkey and Israel. This is a much more complicated process, and this is thinking about how Turkey's selling its surplus water to a different country, and so this is a cross-border concept. And they're doing a range of different things, but if you look at the book, think about the problems which have been created by this concept, and it's quite a complex, quite a difficult scheme which they're going on with. So that's the second scheme which I want you to look at, and for both those schemes you shouldn't be looking to write much, probably about 5 or 6 lines just to show that you've got an understanding of it. The third scheme which I'm going to ask you to look at is much, much bigger. This is the South to North project which was occurring in China. You can see here a map which is showing off the process, which is looking at how they're getting and where they're getting the water from, and you can see the scale of it in this picture here. These are man-made rivers which are looking at how this water is getting shifted around and moved around. Now, what I want you to do is go to this link, watertechnology.net project South North, and if you follow this link, and I'll make sure there's a link on the YouTube page, what you will find is that there is loads of information about the South to North Water Diversion Project. What I'd like you to do is, again, write 6 to 10 lines looking at what they're doing, how much it's costing, when's it going to be done by, and you can see that it's 2050, so this is a long-term project. And it will enable you to think about these different issues and different projects and think about what they're doing and why they're doing it. So have a go at that. Make sure you spend some time reading these things and then explaining these things. 10 lines for each one max to make sure that you've got an understanding of the case study. A few figures, a few statistics. Do not go over the top because you're not going to remember all of them. Okay, the last thing which I want you to do, and this is going to be your homework, okay, is this. Using named examples, assess the extent to which conflict over water supplies is inevitable. So, we're dealing with conflicts. We're going to think about possibly social conflicts, economic conflicts, environmental conflicts. We can think about cross-border issues as well. You have a number of different examples which you can use to develop this answer. First thing to do is in your introduction is define conflict, define water supplies, and also discuss what you understand by inevitability. Then, move on. 3 paragraphs. What would I expect them to read? I'd be expecting to read something about a water transfer project. Possibly the Snowy Mountains, possibly Turkey to Israel, possibly the South to North project, or you can look at a number of those ideas over 2 paragraphs. I would expect to read something about Fiji water, because that's a nice localised case study, and it will enable you to develop those arguments as well, particularly on a more localised scale. Apologies for that. The last thing which you are going to look at is possibly, if you wanted to, the Aral Sea. You might not need to because you might have 3 paragraphs already. The conclusion is going to be thinking about whether these conflicts are always inevitable or can they be managed away and managed out of the way. So your task is to think about these different issues and explain these different conflicts. Any questions, come and see me. This is going to be due in our next lesson, which will be on Wednesday the 20th of November. Okay, this is all on the sheet as well.